Welcome to the Adventure Church podcast. If you would like some more information about us, please visit adventurechurch.co.za. We hope that you will enjoy today's message.
What I'd like to do to start off with is just welcome you to the first business breakfast at our venue. I mean, traditionally, we've hosted this in our home in Palm Lakes, which for many of us, we'd look at and go, it probably would have been a little bit more convenient to travel into Palm Lakes. But what a blessing it is. It's Mike. You know, they always put the hecklers in the front row. It keeps the guy with the microphone on his toes. I have a mic, he is a mic. That's great. But yeah, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us to gather together. I'm trusting that today will be a good day. I've taken the honor of sharing this morning. But in time to come, what the vision of this meeting is, one, that it's a networking meeting, that as we eating and having a meal together, you get to know people that you haven't met before. And you never know what kind of work sharing takes place. One of the things that I love about this community that we live in is it's a networking community. And word of mouth is an amazing thing. I look at Pranav at the back there, and I mean, his name is synonymous with Palm Lakes. And everyone knows of him and about him, and he comes highly recommended because he does a great job. But that's something that we've seen in this culture, and that's the undertone of what this culture is about. And I mean, Dave is a legacy man in this region. He's been here for I don't know how many years, but the name Dave DeLunga, you see it, you drive in the roads here, you see that. It's something that we're wanting to provide an opportunity to get to meet some of these people and put a face to the name, and you never know what comes out of it. And sometimes what comes out of it is a direct connection where you get to work together and open doors, and both of you are beneficiaries of what happens. Sometimes you get to give, and someone says, I'm looking for a person who does this. I know a person, and let me introduce you, and you get nothing out of it other than the joy of releasing this individual into something. So we are trusting for that to take place. We're also going to be getting some people who, when it comes to business, have absolute pearls of wisdom that comes through. Alex was sharing with me yesterday about just finding nuggets in Scripture. And there's some guys who come and they bring nuggets that they release and they're open-handed with. And we are so grateful for people of experience that come and they present something that is worth taking note of. And we get to be shaped by some of the things that are said, and you never know what it unlocks in our own lives and how we move forward. So today we're going to be a little bit more informal, but in time to come, what we're going to do is we're going to bring people in. We're going to have panels potentially where we get to question guys. And the dream is that one day when we have a coffee shop as a church, that we will actually have that person staying on for an extended period of time where you can book a meeting with them, just a time to sit and pick their brain. And if they in an industry or an area that you could learn from them and glean off what they do, that'll be a great opportunity to just connect. So there's a couple of people I've already got in mind that I've spoken to that we're going to be bringing over the next while. And I trust that what you'll find is, one, that it will be a great space to invite people and to bring them into this space, but also that it'll be a place where you find that the input that you get is incredibly valuable. And that's our prayer. But on that note, Lord, I thank you that we get to gather like this. Father, I pray, Lord, for this morning that there are little nuggets that you present to us, Lord, to help us work in an environment where we set a standard and we do things differently. And Lord, I pray, Father, for every business that's represented here, Lord, for a favor and an outpouring. Pray this in your name, Jesus. Thank you, King. Amen. Aleshi, are you winning? So my opening today is, I said I'm the one that's going to be bringing nuggets, but I'm not. We had our youth last night, and our youth is a bunch of young ladies aged between the ages of 11 and 13. So what I did last night was I thought, I wonder what their view on business is. So I posed a question. I said, listen, I'm sharing at a business breakfast tomorrow, and I'm speaking to business people. If you were me, what advice would you give? And, one of the passages of scripture I really enjoy is Paul's charge to Timothy. He says, do not let anyone look down on you because of your youth, but set an example to believers in speech, in life, in love, in faith, and in purity. What that tells me is we can learn from anyone. And one of the things for me is if we open ourselves up to good advice, irrespective of where it comes from, and I'm going to be going through a passage now where a father-in-law is giving advice, and that's a tough place to receive advice, we're going to see that things change. And one of the greatest character traits that we can be is teachable. And know that it doesn't mean that it has to be a teacher that brings this, but sometimes it can come from children. And Lisa, I have to tell you, just listening to a couple of them come from Jess, and she sat there, and she's got a power pose when she gets serious, and she was joking and messing around, but then all of a sudden, her hands come together, and she sits, and now she starts to bring insight and wisdom, and insight and wisdom it was. So the first one is, I will give them advice on how they talk to customers. If a customer came in, you want to relate to them as quickly as possible, because once people feel like they've been related to, that's where you feel more connected in the situation. Hey? How's that for wisdom out of the mouth of babes? This one I found quite interesting. And I do this a lot just because, as all the young kids would say, it's so cringe. But I love to speak with young lingo just to mess with them. But it says, when you advertise and you wanting us to buy something, a lot less slang speak. Like a lot of the Gen Alpha, Gen Z slang, you got to kick that. And because we find that quite cringe. So that was the other one. And sorry, I'm just going through. So today is going to be awfully Sigma. And I hope that you don't feel cooked by the time that you leave. You're so stoked. And that's cap. No cap. Alex is always cap. And yeah, so like they said, this guys, we just sell us the product. We don't need you to try and bring it down to speaking it. It's just that, like, that's weird. Or as Libby says, oh, you mean like the ads from the olden days? That hurt. This one was interesting. Sometimes you think it's just going to be another day of bad customers. And I know this simple advice, and everyone says it, but you must be positive and you must enjoy yourself on the way, because when you flip your mindset on seeing things, everything around you will change. Don't worry about what other people say you must do. Trust in God and make the right decisions. So, quite an amazing insight. And this one, I found this quite profound. And this was speaking about when the boss works from home. And it was sometimes it looks like people aren't doing much, but you don't realize what they're doing when you don't see them. But that's insightful, because sometimes you'll have a person that's in and out, and maybe they work remotely and they're running a business, and it's like they just reap all the rewards, but they actually do none of the work. And meanwhile, you don't see them 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. And Mike, you relate to this. And it often goes unnoticed. Now, we don't need the affirmation of others to give us worth. However, it's something that for me, I know coming out of a business where a lot of people look around and they go, oh, they do nothing. Meanwhile, you don't see what happens behind the scenes. And I think that's quite an insightful thing. So this is 11 to 13-year-olds and their advice on business, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. And I took some notes. So what I'd like to do, when I could speak through Proverbs 18, my notes have just disappeared and my Google Drive is busy updating, so we'll see when we get to that now. But saying earlier about getting advice from strange places, and this is Moses and his dad-in-law Jethro, and stuff was happening, and Jethro pulls Moses aside and gives him a bit of a talking to. And I think sometimes it's hard to receive hard advice, but Jethro could see that Moses was taking strain, and the first point I want to speak into is this thing of capacity. And we live in a very fast-paced, high-capacity environment. I look at some of the people around us and what they do and where they're going and the things that come through, and you think, jeepers, these guys are running with incredible capacity. But the people with the best capacity often surround themselves with the right people. And this is the instruction. He says, "Now obey my voice, I will give you advice, and God be with you. You shall represent the people before God and bring their cases to God, and you shall warn them about their statutes and the laws and make them know the way in which they must walk and what they must do. Moreover, look for able men from all people, men who fear God and who are trustworthy and hate a bribe. And place such men over the people as chiefs of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens. And let them judge all the people all the times. Every great matter they shall bring to you. Any small matter they shall decide themselves. So it will be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you. If you do this, God will direct you, and you will be able to endure, and all this people also go to their place in peace." So the thing that it ends off with is you will take people to where they need to go. If you're a business leader, and for me, every single person carries a leadership weight in one way or another. So we like to classify they are leaders and I'm not. In certain areas, I'm not a leader and other people are. But every single person carries a leadership role, which is an influence over those around them. And what Jethro was saying to Moses here is, you're going to burn out. And understand you've got to protect your capacity. So be intentional with where you spend your time. I was looking at a video from Vusi Tembakwayo the other day, and he was talking about these 4 quadrants of is it urgent, is it not urgent, is it important, is it not important? And he only deals with urgent and important things. Other stuff he delegates, other people deal with it. He's got an assistant that screens it, that she knows whether it's urgent or important, and she screens it. So he only deals with that. Why? Because his time is valuable, and it's an important thing. And what Jethro was saying to Moses is, you're trying to do everything. So that's the first point, is recognize that you can't do everything. We as a people, we have a limited capacity. All of us only have 24 hours in a day, and we have to have a balanced life because there's actually a myriad of different things. We've got family that we've got to look after. We've got to look after ourselves. Rhythms of rest, vitally important. We've got to work hard, but we've also got to enjoy life. It's not just you choose one and neglect everything else. And this is something that Moses was doing, and it was impacting his family. And Jethro saw this. So acknowledge that you yourself don't have an unlimited capacity. And it's important that you find people who you can trust to alleviate pressure and buy back some of your time. Then the next point is not everyone that you choose will have the same degree of capacity, and that's okay. So he says he found them and he made them chiefs over thousands, over hundreds, over fifties, and over tens. And I think sometimes a person who's a chief over 10 doesn't mean that the capacity of the 10 is not great, because you don't know who they're chiefs over. And someone who has a close group, Jesus had 12, And that's who he spoke to, and that's who he invested in. So we're going to look at and find people who have the right capacity to alleviate the pressure on us, that you don't land up burning yourself out. The other thing is play people in position. I was messing with Alex this morning, and I wrote Messi as his name tag because he's a devout Ronaldo supporter as a Portuguese man. So my grandfather was born in Comodoro Rivadavia in Argentina, and as such, I'm a devout Messi supporter. So we have this beautiful friendship and a great rivalry. But I put this thing of Messi on him. Now, for me, Messi is the greatest player in this era. However, Messi as a goalkeeper would be useless. So you could take the greatest footballer and play him in a different role, and he would not make the team. He wouldn't get a professional contract, and no one will know who he is because he's being played out of position. So we're going to be a people who are strategic in playing people in position according to the strengths, because you play them out of a position and they can be a massive liability. Play them in position, they can be an incredible asset. The other thing is chemistry trumps competency. It says here, moreover, look for able men. So competency is important. Able men from all the people, men who fear God, who are trustworthy and hate a bribe, and place such men over the people. There's a character thing that becomes key in who we build with. And chemistry and character, people who align with the corporate culture that we're busy developing, it's a vitally important thing, because they can destroy your business if they might be the most gifted individual. Again, if I look at some of the sports references and some of the teams that I've seen prodigies ruin change rooms because they're emotionally toxic, but they're phenomenally gifted. I would rather build with a person who's less gifted, but I know that they have my back and my heart, than build with someone who lands up pulling the rug out from underneath me. If we are in trust to trustworthy people, but don't be fearful, let people prove their trustworthiness as well. The other thing is understand what your role is. Saying about Vusi Tembakwayo, he's got this formula that he's applied to identify what are the tasks he gives his time to. And what Jethro was saying to Moses is, you deal with the high level things and make sure that your people are dealing with other things. Now, I'm going to throw a little bit of a conundrum that's not to contradict this, because I don't believe it does. But someone once said, and I thought it was such great advice, if you're going to alleviate pressure on people in your team and you have capacity to help them, take the most menial task off their plate. Because what you do is you building and raising them up in a leadership capacity. And they know that you are not above doing menial work. And I think there's something of that in our characters and how we set a standard. If you've got someone and they are under pressure and you can see them flailing, don't take the high level stuff away from them and leave them with the menial things. But go there and do the menial job and alleviate from the bottom, so that you show them, hey, you have a place and I trust you. But define your role and understand what you have to do. And make sure you are aware of the tasks that are important to you and your business. The next thing that comes from that is nothing that we own is ours. And a friend of mine, he was actually preaching at a business breakfast a little while ago, and he made a statement. He says, the only thing that truly belongs to you is something you can take when you die. And the last time he checked, that was very little. And the definition of stewardship is looking after something that doesn't belong to you. And we have a responsibility to steward things well in how we live. And if we acknowledge that it doesn't belong to us, and now I recognize there's sometimes two camps of people, but his statement was, often if it belongs to someone else, you look after it far more intently than if it belongs to you, because the idea is you always give it back in the same or better condition than what you received it. So if this is our mandate, that's an important thing to grab hold of. And when we acknowledge that we're not the owners of anything, all of a sudden our mindset changes. How do we steward our time? How do we steward our relationships? How do we steward our businesses? How do we steward our finances? And stewardship is not a fearful thing. And I think often we try and do it, I've been such a poor steward, and there's this anxiety associated with stewarding. But actually, this has got to do with the fact that we take it seriously, the things that have been given to us. And in Matthew 25, in the parable of the talents, and I'm not going to go through the talents, the one whose talents multiplied, who took it and gave the master entrusted things to 3 men, and there were 2 of them where it multiplied, and what they did is when they gave it back, it was better than what they had before. It says in Matthew 25:23, his master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much." And that's great, and there's a beautiful promise in that, is actually when we are faithful with the little, more is entrusted to us. However, there's another little key thing here that we often negate when we quote this, and it says, enter into the joy of your master. One of the other translations says, and you will share in the happiness of your master. And good stewardship ushers in joy. So this is not a burden, and there's a difference between something that's heavy, which is a burden, and something that's weighty, which is a responsibility. We carry the weight of stewardship. We don't carry the burden of stewardship. And the byproduct is, if we steward well, we actually increase our joy. And this is a great thing for us as business people, is how do we steward our time? I know for Shanae and I, we started our business before moving from Joburg because we had full-time jobs in Joburg. We came here to plant Adventure Church, and one of the things for me that I was encouraged in, and it was a conviction in my heart, is own your time. The reason for that is I knew I could not honor a boss who owned my time, because I would be selling 8 hours a day and I couldn't commit to that. So to avoid dishonoring, I'd rather start my own business and own my time, because then the only one who's paying the price is me. I'm not expecting someone else to pay the price on my behalf. And that's something that we've got to look at, is how do we steward our time? If you work for someone, it's important. They own your time. There's an exchange where they're saying, I'm buying your time at this rate so that you can come alongside. And the guys that Moses brought in, they came alongside him, and the end result is the people went in a unified direction. So he was able to bring them into a vision, but he had people close to him who walked alongside him, and they were able to, as a team, fulfill the vision. And it's important for us, if we work for people, that we steward the time that we've sold to them well, so that they get value for their money. However, the risk is as well, is honor your time, that it's not you just give of yourself to the point of death and burnout and to the neglect of everything else. Because the risk is we work so hard and so intentionally that everything else suffers. We've got to find a balance in how we do things. Rest, vitally important. A friend of mine says there's 3 things that require faith: finance, forgiveness, and rest. And rest is probably the one that we brag the most about not taking. Oh, you have no idea how busy I am, and I'm running. But when are you resting? Actually, we don't brag about that. That should be something that we should be building, these rhythms that are important. And then I want to go on to my second last point, but this is something that is difficult in the culture that we live in. But I woke up in the early hours of the morning a couple of nights ago, and I had this sentence running through my heart, and it was this: don't build something to show people, build something to impact people. So we don't build to present to people, hey, I've got what it takes now. And I think sometimes there's this inherent question deep in our hearts of, do I have what it takes? So when I build, I'm hoping people will see that I have what it takes. But actually, we don't build to show people, we build to impact people. There was a journal of positive psychology that presented a kind of a write-up on the physiological effects of helping others and what does it do. And there was a myriad of different things of how you are healthier when you give your life to helping others. And one of the quotes that came out of this is, engaging in meaningful acts for others not only enhances subjective well-being, but also activates physiological pathways associated with health and longevity. So when we give of ourselves, you get. Jesus, when he was ministering to the woman at the well, he says, my bread is to do the will of the Father. And it's amazing because in the analogy, bread is what brings sustenance. So he's saying, my sustenance is to do the will of the Father, which was to love others. So he was eating of that, and it was building him up. And that's something that's counter how we often live in a dog-eat-dog world, and we look at corporate, and you've got this thing where you've got to step on people to climb the ladder of success. But actually, it's not a sustainable model. And we've got to be building sustainably and building beyond ourselves. One of the key scriptures that we've built our business on is Jeremiah 29:7. And this for me is a key component to how we want to build so that people are impacted. And it says here, but seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare. For in its welfare you will find your welfare. If we are in a space where we get to serve people, and whatever our business is, whether it's selling a product, we want to sell a product at a reasonable market-related price that we make money, because businesses need to make money. So I think the risk is, we just give everything away. No, businesses need to make money because all of us need to eat. But we do it at a fair market-related price. One of the comments that came from one of the young ladies last night, she says one of the things she struggles with is places open their doors and they give these really big specials. And it's amazing because it attracts a lot of people, and you go and buy there, and then all of a sudden you go back the next week and everything's really expensive. It's like, that's tough to walk back in that shop and go, oh, it was so cheap last week, but now it's really expensive. That's insightful. I've never looked at it from that perspective. Saying, but that for her hurts. Because yes, so it's 2 for 1, but then you go back the next week and the 1 is more expensive than what you paid for the 2 last week, and you're going, but that doesn't feel right. Now, I'm not saying that kind of marketing is a problem, but I'm saying there's a concept in the fact that we are building to serve people. So be fair in what we price things. The other thing that is important is we honor the people that come in. If your customer comes in and you relate to them, the quicker that you relate to them, the better the relationship is. It's amazing. So we relate to people because we actually see people. We don't see dollar signs. When a person comes in, we want to honor them. And I think there's a lot of these videos on social media where people who look like they can't afford something land up in a shop and they're wanting to buy something, but the people treat them in a manner that's not conducive to who they are, because what they've presented is they've presented a person, but the person wants to see this icon. And I mean, Elon Musk, I think if I remember correctly, and if I've misquoted the story, forgive me, but the concept remains the same. I think he walked into a bank and presented himself as like a homeless guy and wanted to open an account. And one lady was prepared to help him. Everyone else kind of fobbed him off. And he blessed this woman tremendously, if I understand correctly. But he was saying that's the person who showed true customer service, because she was there to serve people. She wasn't there to serve a bank balance. So when we seek the welfare of the city in which we're in, something happens is they achieve their welfare, but our welfare comes as a byproduct of this. And the thing for us is we start growing and flourishing, and physiologically there's a health benefit to who we are. And then the last one I want to go through is we've got to be a people who build sustainably. And often we think that sustainable is really fast. And actually, sustainably is something that we build in accordance with our capacity in the season. So if we're going to be growing our business, we grow little by little. And I love the term. The term little by little is mentioned in Scripture 3 times. Proverbs 13:11 says, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. Now, if you look at across society, those who win the lottery very seldom land up being wealthy. Because what happens is they don't actually know how to manage it. One of the biggest problems with sports contracts is sports contracts that the sportsmen are gifted in sport, but not in business. Listened to an interview where Charles Barkley was talking about, now if you go back to the OG days of basketball, Charles Barkley was one of the guys, late 90s, early 2000s, great basketball player. Nike was kind of new on the scene and they hadn't built the brand that we know today. And they had just signed Michael Jordan and now they were signing Charles Barkley. And they wanted to pay him out $3 million. And he thought, oh, that's amazing. I'm going to take this. And Michael Jordan called him aside and said, listen, get them to give you $1 million and get them to give you $2 million worth in stock. He says, but why? He says, I would like the money. $3 million in my pocket is better than $1 million in my pocket. He said, trust me, get them to give you $1 million and put $2 million into stock and get them to give you stock. He reckons that $2 million turned into $30 million because he took the advice of the man that he trusted. He's a sportsman. But he needs business acumen. And again, that means we've got to surround ourselves with the right people who can speak into these things. But wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. Exodus 22:30 says, I will not drive them out from before you in 1 year, lest the land become desolate and the wild beasts multiply against you. Little by little I will drive them out from before you until you have increased and possessed the land. There's something about the sustainable building, just brick upon brick, step upon step. One of the things that when I studied architecture, a big thing is concrete takes 28 days to cure and you have to spray it every day. If you look at how quickly people build, they don't leave concrete for 28 days to cure properly and nurse it, because you're meant to water it every single day and allow the water to seep in. And what happens is it causes strength and it causes rigidity and the concrete particles bind properly. What happens if you don't do that and you build on it prematurely? Cracks. How many people have to deal with cracks in their home? That's just settling cracks. No, it's because we've bypassed the process to make it fast. And actually, we land up paying a lot of money at the end of the day because we did it quickly instead of doing it well. It's amazing how we can't do the job right the first time, but there's always time to do it right the second time. We hear some of these cliches, and the reason they're cliches is because they actually happen more often than not. Deuteronomy 7:22 says something similar. It says, you shall not be in dread of them, for the Lord your God is in your midst, a great and awesome God. The Lord your God will clear away these nations before you, little by little. You may not make an end of them at once, lest the wild beasts grow too numerous for you. Little by little, little by little. And I think that's something that I'd like to leave, and then I want to open it up if there's any questions or comments with regards to this. But it's okay to build slowly, because slow building is sustainable building and it doesn't topple over quickly. And if we look at the points that I've made in terms of capacity, sometimes we try and build outside of our capacity, and before you know it, you're juggling more balls than you can actually cope with, and the balls start falling. And if that's the case, pick ourselves up and we build again. But there is this premise of we we work with in accordance with our capacity, we steward well. The stuff that's been entrusted to us, look after it. I tell you this much, it's a difference between juggling tennis balls and juggling crystal wine glasses. You handle it differently. The one you drop shatters and it's expensive, the other one bounces. So we've got to also recognize what we're stewarding and how do we steward well and in accordance with what we've got. When we build outward, because actually it blesses you and it blesses those around you. And if we have this mentality when we go into our businesses, I think that's Pranava. I'm spending time talking about you today, but I think it's because of the fact that you carry the reputation that you do. And I've seen the reviews and the write-ups of the service that you offer. And that's because you care for people. And anyone can drive a person from A to B. Very few people can make that memorable. And it's your ability to make it memorable that sets you apart. Because it's not a drive. It's an engagement with a customer. And there's something special about that. Build beyond yourselves, because when you do, the people that you build with will find their welfare, but your welfare will come as a byproduct. And then we're not striving for stuff. We're striving to be rather than striving to do. My dad-in-law has a beautiful saying. He says, we're human beings, not human doings. So be more and do less. Human beings. And when we get this right, now I know that for me, there's times when I wrestle with this, there's times when I mess this up, there's times when I fail dismally at some of these things because my focus has shifted. But when we bring our focus back, it's amazing how things start to fall into place in a different manner. And we deal with things differently and we cope differently and the joy is greater. And we go in with this expectation where sometimes it feels like we're going to have a bad day, but we change our mindsets and go, actually, it's going to be a good day. Listen to a video that I've been going through with my girls but a study that was done where they got a group of ladies and they put makeup on them with severe scarring on their faces to see the prejudice in an interview setting toward people with facial disfigurements. And they showed these ladies themselves in the mirror, so now they were very aware of what they looked like. And then what happened was they said they were going to touch up their makeup, and they actually removed the scars. So they went into these interviews with no scars whatsoever. And every single one of them came back and brought feedback of prejudice and comments that were made directed at the scars on their faces. They went in expecting that to be the case. So what did they do? They found it. But for us, we're going to go in with a different mindset. Every customer is an opportunity just to love people, to serve people, to look after people. Every encounter that we have is a blessing. Dave, I don't know what your funnel kind of numbers look like in terms of people that you meet versus people that buy property. Now, I know that you are really gifted at what you do, so the numbers probably a lot of people convert into sales. But you think about the number of people you get access to that will never spend money with you. They're part of the journey. You can't live without them because it's a volumes game. So the more people that you meet, the greater the likelihood of getting a sale. The more lines that you've got in the water, the greater the likelihood of catching a fish. You can't catch a fish if you don't have bait in the water, but the more bait, the likelihood you might not catch on all of them. And some of them might nibble and you reel in an empty hook and you rebait it. But every single person is an opportunity. I get to serve these people. I get to love these people. I get to speak life over these people. I get to encourage these people. I get to honor these people sincerely. And it's amazing how things shift. So that's everything from me. But